Hello. So, update on what's going on. So, it's kind of stagnant. Not a whole lot is going on, actually. So, it's kind of frustrating, but I'm trying to have faith in God and trying to see this as maybe He just wants me to be at peace and rest right now because I've worked hard my entire life and not used to taking a break and just go, go, go. I've never, ever actually had a proper vacation. Like, PTO is usually spent on like if I was sick or needed to do an appointment or things like that. So I've never even actually taken a vacation. And this is the first time I've ever actually slowed down. So trying to see it that way is just really kind of frustrating because I'm used to things going faster. So we'll see. So as far as that job that claimed she wanted me, so there was a lot of red flags in the interview, and I was trying to look on the positive side of it, but I kind of knew that something was up. So this was the job that was toxic, that I was told, you're a final candidate, you're our best candidate, blah, 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 yada, yada. And she had her hair pulled back in a ponytail, kind of looked greasy, like she hadn't showered. She didn't give me eye contact at all during our video interview on Teams. And it wasn't just because she was reading questions or writing down my answers. She literally never gave me eye contact. So that was not a good sign. She was very competitive. When I would answer a question and give her an example of something that happened and how I handled it, she would compete and tell me, what she did and what she went through. And so I was like, okay, I'm not trying to go for your job. I'm trying to go for a job, and you would be the boss, but, whatever. And she only had like a couple of things to draw from, which were her internship days a long time ago. And, my experiences were practical and when I actually was around patients. So I had a job for over 9 years and I worked my butt off. That's how I paid for grad school. I worked at this awful job, and this awful job, I was sent out to these homes by myself. And so I would encounter things like guys answering the door inappropriately, not dressed. Had one guy that literally started masturbating in his living room right in front of me. I left immediately. I didn't tell him to stop. I didn't have a conversation. I ran out of there. Had a couple pull a knife on me and threaten to kill me. Had one patient that was 6'5" put his hand out hi, like he wanted to shake my hand, hello. Grabbed my hand, held it tightly, threw me. I was 5'4" and very small at the time. Didn't eat very much because constantly working, constantly going to grad school, constantly studying, not much money to do anything with. So I was skinny at the time. This was 2006 through 2011. And so anyway, my 5'4" frame versus his 6'5" frame, he threw me like a rag doll across the room, and I heard my arm go pop, and I felt it go down to my fingers and down my back. I knew he screwed me. So I permanently have a dislocated shoulder and nerve thanks to that patient, and there's no way to fix it. And the one doctor I saw, which doctors in Texas are awful, absolutely no manners, they don't care, they don't give you eye contact, they're awful. And he, the entire time, spoke into a thing and told me, basically, if I'm to do surgery, you'll lose your range of motion. And I was like, so things like putting on a shirt, washing my hair, combing my hair, I won't be able to do any of that anymore, right? And he said, no. He said I would have to permanently staple your nerve that's dislocated onto your bone, and then the bone itself that's dislocated, there's nothing I could do about it. I was like, screw that. He didn't even offer like a cortisone shot or anything, nothing. So it was the worst. So I walked out of there with nothing. and I have pain for the rest of my life in the shoulder. It goes numb. My hands often feel numb. It feels like, have you ever sat on your foot and it feels like it's asleep, and you go to step on the ground and you're like, oh, I feel like pins and needles. That's me on a regular basis with this hand and with my arm and shoulder. So the good thing is I am ambidextrous. I am able to use my left hand to do quite a bit of things. I can draw with my left hand. I could do things with my left hand, but I am predominantly right-handed, and this was taken from me, from a patient. So I sacrificed that. I didn't tell that lady that story because it's too much and it's too dramatic. So I told her tamer stories, and that still was like topping her little internship time. So I knew I was more experienced than her. I knew my education was more, and I just wanted a job and a shot. But she seemed really insecure. Like I said, she kept trying to one-up me, and so that's never a good sign. Not a good sign that she wasn't giving me eye contact. Not a good sign that her hair was greasy and she looked mentally unstable. And not a good sign that she asked me for my transcripts and my driver's license and social security card to be sent to her the day before our interview. I sent all that. She asked me for my transcripts again, sent it again. They were obviously official, came from the parchment, and I didn't hear back from her after that. And I complied with her. So... and I'm not going to be sorry about my high grades and my high GPA. I worked my ass off for it. It's not because I'm more intelligent than anybody else, above average in intelligence. It's because I sacrificed and I worked my ass off in grad school and work. I literally went from classes to work to home to studying all night and waking up really super early, working, going to classes, working, coming home, studying, and that was my life from 2006 to 2011 when I graduated. So I graduated in December 2011, and I worked my butt off, and I used to get, I was still young enough that people wanted to socialize with me back in those days, because Facebook, all your high school buddies and college buddies are finding you and everything, and so you're like, oh, cool, and I would get all these invites, and I would have to keep telling them, I'm sorry, but I have class. I'm sorry, but I have to study. I'm sorry, but I have an exam coming up. I'm sorry, I have a research paper I have to finish. And I kept having to say that, and the next door neighbor guy that I was in an on and off dating that wasn't great. Anyway, he told me, you better start saying, yes to some of these invites, or you're not going to be invited to anything anymore and you're going to regret it. There's going to be a time all these invites that you keep saying no to, you're going to have to start saying, you're not going to be invited to anymore. I mean, he was right. People stopped inviting me to things because I kept saying no. So I sacrificed a lot to get to where I am, and it's frustrating when women are insecure by my GPA and by the grades I have on my transcript, and it's frustrating. And it's frustrating that my experience is more than theirs. I'm not competing against them. It's survival, plain and simple. It's survival for me. It's not a competition for them to make them feel inferior. It's survival for me. So I'm so frustrated that they can't see beyond themselves and think, okay, she's trying to do the best she can and survive. I wish that it was that simple with getting a job or doing anything, but it's frustrating. So everything is pending. So the one financial job I applied at, I had the interview and everything, and she said there was locations close to me that I could possibly work at, an office. That still shows pending. So HR hasn't gotten off their ass to do anything on that. And the weird thing is there's a glitch. I keep getting invites to do interviews for that same position with that same lady. I already contacted them and I still get the invites. So I don't know what to do to fix that glitch. I just, a daily email going, interview for this position that I've already interviewed for with the same lady that I've already done. So, you know, obviously they have glitches in their system, and HR isn't, you know, speedily working on my application. So I might have to look for another job and keep going. But I've applied at a billion jobs and have gotten a ton of rejections. Like, we found a better candidate that, you know, we're going to go with instead. Which, you know, when you get that generic email of, after looking at your application and resume, we decided on a better candidate, that is really rude. The HR people, it's like lacking. They've got that power, and they're just junkyard dogs to the company, but they lack any care and thought, because employees don't matter to them. We don't matter, and so they don't care how they treat you. They don't care how their words are. They know they can legally dance in a certain way. And speaking of lawyer, that guy that said he would call me back within a couple of days never called. And I told him, you know, if he was didn't want to gamble on the fact that I was wrongfully terminated, that I was being treated in a hostile workplace condition. My boss created a hostile work condition for me. That the other thing he could go after is wages. I was not paid my fair share in wages. They didn't even pay me minimum wage when they let me go. So the final check that I got wasn't even minimum wage. I got far less than that. I got 2.5 months. I got one check for $1,000. That was it. That was my final check. So you think about 2.5 months, and it's not even minimum wage. It's just a one-time, here's your $1,000 for showing that you were active on the internet at times with a shoddy used laptop that we provided. That is not your fault, but we're going to make it your fault because you pissed off your supervisor by reporting her to her supervisor and HR for not paying you, and for saying you're going to have brain damage from having COVID. So, and the other unprofessional names she called me. I reported everything. I documented and reported it all. And although it did nothing to her, she didn't get fired, she didn't get moved around, because that's usually what they do. They don't fire a bad manager. They just move them to another department to create another toxic work environment. That's what they do. The only time they fire a manager is sexual inappropriate behavior that has been proved, which is hard to prove. So, you know, it's never your words. That whole Me Too movement, great for those people that are like claiming stuff from 30 years ago. If you have something that's recent, unless you have actual proof, there's nothing you can do, especially if you're in a crappy state like, you know, where I'm at. So it's frustrating, and I'm trying not to be angry, but I'm frustrated at my situation, and I'm trying to let it go. I guess God closed the door for me to have any kind of vindication with my former company. And, you know, the lawyer won't represent me, so there's nothing I could do about that. You know, he blew me off, which I knew he was going to. He was pretty much blowing me off from the beginning, and then turned it around on me and said that I didn't answer the phone. That's never a good sign. I hate manipulative behavior. I hate that. So if you try to manipulate and throw it back on me, and I can see for a fact you're doing that, I already don't like and trust that person. So, you know, he had claimed he was going to call me back, and he never did, about the wages, the fact that I was not paid my wages, and the fact that they paid another employee her full wages and welcomed her back with open arms and a working laptop to return to work in. I had proof of all that. So I give it to God, because obviously I'm not going to be vindicated, and it hurts. It's infuriating, and it hurts. I worked my guts out for that company. And because I worked all last year, my income tax return, even though I didn't get much of a return, and I was heavily taxed and paid a ton in insurance for medical insurance or whatever with their crappy plan. I applied for financial aid for the university that I'm trying to go for, and all I got approved for from the federal government is a loan for $9,000. So that just sucks. So it's like, okay, God, I guess I really need some miracles, because everything I'm trying to do, because you're always supposed to give action to prayer. You're not supposed to just go, okay, I'm just going to pray and have a job miraculously land in my lap. You have to apply for jobs and throw your resume around and, give it feet, which I do, and nothing, I'm pending on everything. So all I can do is keep on pounding the pavement and, so to speak, and apply all these jobs online and keep going and see what I can get out there. It's just frustrating. And it's frustrating about the college thing, because I'm accepted in the program and I know what classes I need to take and I know I need to register, but I can't take them when I only have a loan for $9,000. That's just not enough. So I need a job so I could pay for books, pay for all the classes I need to take, and yada yada. I mean, logically, I could take one class and I could take, buy the books that I need for the one class and be thankful for the $9,000 loan and move on. But, it's something I need to think really logically about and pray about and see what God wants me to do. It's frustrating. It's frustrating being a Christian when you feel like, I know God has compassion for me. I know Jesus has compassion for me. But at the same time, it's like I try to ask for direction and discernment and wisdom and guidance, and I don't feel like I have it like a lot of the times, and I feel like I'm just left to do this by myself, and it's scary. And that's why, this is kind of funny. I for college, I went to one of the colleges I went to was a private school. And so there would be like these, and I went to a Southern Baptist college. So there would be these guys who would tell me, you have to submit because you're a woman. And I would have to tell them, you didn't read the Bible, because that's only for a husband. I don't have to submit for you. You're a random guy that I barely know. Why would I have to submit and do what you say? I'm not your slave. And then you get labeled a feminist. And I'm like, I'm not a feminist. I'm not submitting to you. You're not my husband. I don't have to do what you say just because you're a guy, And then in the South, what I hate that they do here is you'll be talking to somebody, and if it's a man and you're having a logical conversation, if another man comes over to the conversation, you suddenly disappear. Like, they stop talking to you and stop acknowledging you as if you're not there. And if you try to interject or try to continue to talk, they literally talk on top of you. It's extremely rude. I freaking hate this culture so much some days. And they think they think in their mind that is part of the Bible and has to do with submission and treating women like they shouldn't talk, because they don't really study or understand the Bible. Because first of all, when Paul made that rule to that church, so Paul was doing a lot of stamping out fires, with churches that were having squabbles and things. And so when he wrote the letter to, I think it was Galatians, that was having the issue with women, telling women to be quiet during church. In those days, so it wasn't, so in those days, it was more Hebrew people than it was Gentiles, but it was a mixture. It was a newly formed Christianity church, and in those days, strict Jewish customs would be women would sit on one side, guys would sit on another. And so if a woman didn't understand something, she would holler over at the man, what does that mean? Like if a rabbi was speaking, she would holler over, what does that mean? Or what did he say? Kind of like, women do at movies. When you're trying to watch a movie and you hear the woman say, what did that person say? because they weren't paying attention. Or what does that mean? Because they didn't understand it. And so they did the same thing in church. So that's where that comes from. That doesn't mean women always have to be quiet and silent and not speak, you know, and that's taken out of context. You have to understand culture and context if you're going to do something like that, like expect a woman to be silent. It's just ridiculous. So, and again, you know, why don't you go back to the Midwest? Go back to Detroit. I can't afford it. I can't afford to move. I'm locked in a lease. I'm stuck here. And I don't think God wants me to move. And so even though I'm complaining a lot because that's out of frustration, I do have a lot of friends that are Texans, so don't think that I don't like Texans. I do. I just don't like the culture part of pretending I don't exist anymore because another man walked up. I don't like the women here that think that they have to compete with you, like as if it's some kind of competition. I don't like that. I don't like being singled out constantly because it's mostly a German ethnicity culture here and Mexican culture in Texas. And so I look different and I constantly get, you know, told I look different. And I hate that. I wish nothing more than just let me work and do my thing. I am a complete introvert. I am complete enneagram type 5, typical, stereotypical of those two things. When you look them up, I just want to work and do my thing. I don't want to be micromanaged. I don't want to be a manager. I just want to work hard and do my thing. I don't want to be bothered with gossip. I don't want to be bothered with anything. I'm not out to compete with you. I want to better myself. I want to do my best. It is about me, not about you. I don't care about you except for the fact that I'm trying to make peace with you. And by doing that, I'm being nice and friendly or just doing my job. And if you ask me for help, I help you. That is what I do. But anyway, $9,000 loan is what I'm approved for. So we'll see. I'm going to pray about it. No job. So still, same thing. Oh, when I was audited by unemployment, that's always fun. So I had to prove that I was looking for jobs. So to fight unemployment for 2 months and then getting unemployment benefits and then to get audited as fast as I got audited. It's just, I feel like, I wish Jesus was physically here and could hug me because I could use that hug, to be honest. Or I wish I could meet Henry Cavill and get a hug. That would be the best hug ever. I guarantee it. So, but it is what it is. I'm here. And I've got my pillows and my dog that is awful. My rescue dog, which, I can't remember if I already talked about it, but, so I rescued her in March, and she's a year old, and whoever owned her, I can tell they had multiple dogs because she's extremely territorial when it comes to food, when it comes to other pets. She can't be around other animals. When I'm walking with her and there's another animal or another person, she's awful. She leans all of her weight on my bad knees and tries to attack them and go after them. And it's really stressful. I'm trying to walk her and train her, and I'm trying to get her exercise so she doesn't get fat. And I also want to get out her hyper energy because she's a year old according to their estimate. And it's just, it's frustrating. So I need to walk on my own to get my own exercise, and unfortunately go on shorter walks with her because it is what it is. She's very territorial, and I can't handle her with this arm having numbness and no strength, and only having this arm and then my bad knees. So it is what it is. But that's it. And thanks for watching. Sorry I rattled on too much. Typical, huh?